How are you feeling this morning?
Great.
All relaxed now? It's so good to be together again, isn't it? Just as a sideline, that particular flute that Michael was playing just now, we had ordered it secondhand. Was it on eBay, Michael? Before we moved here. And come to find out, the maker of the flute is from Cookeville, Tennessee. Paul Neal is his name. Some of you may know Paul Neal. He's a well-known flute maker in the area. That flute brought us to Cookeville, so good to hear it again this morning. Well, you know that we love watching TV and movies, and Michael and I were watching a show the other day, and people were walking through a maze, and the maze was taller than they were. And when you're walking through a maze, and it's taller than you are, you can't see the way ahead, which way it's going. You don't know which way you're going to turn, where it's going to lead. And I became a claustrophobic just watching these people walking through this maze, not knowing where it was going to go. And, you know, I've said this so often, someday you're going to get sick of hearing this because I say it so often, but it's like life. And I always read from my refrigerator magnet that I've shared with you before, that this life is a test. It's only a test. Had it been an actual life, you would have received further instructions on where to go and what to do. And so it's like walking through one of those mazes, but we have been given this gift of the 12 powers of the Christ. When Jesus called forth his 12 apostles metaphysically, each one represented a quality he was calling forth in himself. And so today we look at the Apostle James, son of Zebedee, and the old word they used to give for this power was right judgment. And I don't not like that phrase because in Unity we don't believe in writing, in judging, and sometimes right judgment can be interpreted as righteous judgment, and we all know how we feel about people with righteous judgment. A better word, and the more current word they're using in Unity, is the gift of wisdom or discernment. And when we say right judgment, we mean discerning. What's the best thing to do in this situation? When you're in that maze of life and don't know what to say, where to turn, where to go. The original fall in consciousness was when human consciousness fell into judgment. We ate of the tree of good and evil and started to judge things. This is good, this is evil. And it came from our 5 senses. We judged according to what we saw and heard and felt and smelled. For instance, you see something and it looks good, so you judge it as good, not bad. It looks good. Or you hear something and you've never heard it before, so it sounds a little different, a little strange, so maybe you judge it as bad. You taste something like peanut M&Ms, has to be good for you, right? It tastes so good. And kale has to be bad for you, because who likes kale? If it feels wonderful, we judge it as good. If it's painful, we judge it as bad. And if we don't understand an experience or it triggers us, it pushes our buttons, we judge it as bad. Now, Reverend Charles Roth, who wrote the 12-Power Meditation Exercise, said, wisdom is not information from books, universities, and libraries. They cannot give you wisdom. Information, yes, but not wisdom or right judgment. That can only arise from within the individual, from the divine presence. And Charles Fillmore, when he was in meditation and placed all these attributes of the Christ, he placed wisdom in the solar plexus. He said wisdom includes judgment, discrimination, intuition, and all the departments of mind that come under the heading of knowing. The house or throne of this wise judge is at the nerve center called the solar plexus, also called the pit of the stomach. Now, if you're wondering why, it makes perfect sense. How many of you, when you're worried, get a stomach ache from worrying yourself sick in the stomach? Or when you're in love, you get what? Butterflies in the stomach, right? Or if you hear sad news, your stomach turns upside down, or your stomach sinks, that sinking feeling in the stomach. If it feels right or wrong, you call it a gut feeling that told you that. And situations or people, you can say, I can't stomach that person, or I can't stomach that situation. So you see, the stomach is that perfect place for that attribute of the Christ faculty of wisdom. When you call it forth, put your hand on your solar plexus and say, I call forth the Christ faculty of wisdom in me. I know what to do and say in every moment. And that wisdom comes forth. Even aging and life experience isn't enough for wisdom. I always thought, well, maybe when I get older, I'll get wiser. But that hasn't always happened. It's not about age or experience or what you've learned. It's divine wisdom from within that is revealed to you when you least expect it. But you certainly can call it forth and ask for it. Now, wisdom is associated with the divine feminine. And the Bible calls wisdom she. In the book of Proverbs, it says, happy is the man who finds wisdom and who gets understanding. It is more valuable than silver or gold, and she is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare to her. And so when they say she, they're not talking about a man or a woman. They're talking about the divine feminine quality of wisdom in all of us. Some men are more intuitive, some women are more intuitive. I know Michael is extremely intuitive. And I have some intuition too. We all have it at different levels by how often we use it and rely on it. Now in the Bible, in the Old Testament, Solomon is noted for his wisdom. And you all heard the story many times when you were a child, how these two women were fighting and they came to him with this baby. Each one was claiming to be the mother and wanting that child. And he had to decide which one to give the baby to. Now, if he would have used his reasoning intellect, he would have said, let's find out the history here. Who are these people? Maybe look at the baby. Which one does the baby look like? But he used his intuition. And he said, I know. Cut the baby in half. Give half to each mother. And of course, the real mother said, no, don't cut the baby in half. And he knew that was the right mother of the child. That's called using your divine wisdom to make decisions. Rational people would look at data, look at the facts. But the ancient societies had a worship wisdom cult. They called worship of Sophia. They gave her a name, Sophia. And it was divine wisdom to give them instruction during that maze of life so that we could all live fearlessly and wisely. Now, in my experience, I have used intuition over intellect for almost all of my major decisions in life. I've moved a number of times throughout my years, and each time there was a gut feeling. I used to call it, I'm all revved up, but I don't know where I'm supposed to go yet. But at some point, that revved up would say, this is it. Now it's time. But your intuition will tell you. Whenever I've bought a house over the years, I've always known as soon as I got to the house. Sometimes I didn't even have to walk into the house. It was like, yep, this is my house. How did I know? Certainly wasn't from reason. Some of the houses were falling apart or weren't that good a shape. But I just knew this is my house. It's called intuition. Michael and I knew each other for some time before we both knew at the same time, this is it, and it's time. Intuition. The reasoning process of the intellect processes facts, and facts can get in the way. I think this is good because it looks good. I hear this and I recognize it must be good. M&Ms taste good, must be good. But the intuition comes from a different place. And many times, God's wisdom, we're told, sounds like foolishness to us because it doesn't make sense. But your gut is telling you it does. I don't know how many of you moved here like we did, but how many of you moved to where you are or got the job that you got because of a gut intuitive pull that brought you here or that brought you here this morning? That's the divine pull that is working in our lives every moment if we're in tune to it. experiencing life, this is from the Course of Love, experiencing life without the insight of spirit is to experience the external life. Life showed you the way, pointing you in differing directions, taught you what you need to know. But this was the external experience of life. And most of you have well-examined external lives, while you looked outwardly for the signpost to guide you. The self-guidance of inner sight may or may not have been developed. And you can't heal your world from the consciousness that created it. And that's why we need the divine Christ faculty of wisdom. And our bodies are like receptors, like a dowsing rod. You know what dowsing rods are? Those sticks that people are looking for water. When they get to water, the stick goes down and they can find water. And our bodies work the same way. If any of you have ever had that gut feeling, you know what I'm talking about. Or do you ever get goosebumps? Or that tingly feeling on your skin? It's telling you, pay attention here. Does your skin ever crawl? Or you're itching to do something? Or the hair stands up at the back of your neck? Be careful here. That intuitive knowing makes no sense to the outer world, to the reasoning intellect. But it's the divine speaking to you. And even people like Einstein said most of his inspiration did not come from intellectual reasoning, but he would go into the silence, and it would just come to him, a knowing. So how do we tap into that knowing? Well, ask, and then wait, and listen. But then you have to use that gift of discernment. How do I know this is divine wisdom or my own ego's fear-based thinking? Kind of hard to decide some days. Is this me? Is it me or is it Memorex, you know? So there are 5 attributes of wisdom that comes from the divine. First of all, it's not from human reasoning. It's from an inner revelation, and it all comes in a whole idea. You don't reason through it, it's just there, all of one concept. And it's always for the good of all. It's always harmonizing, not divisive. It's discerning, but never judging. Right judgment is not righteous judgment. And it's always that feeling of peace, that peaceful knowing that yes, this is it. Not from reasoning, not from information or facts, but that inner knowing. And there's so many symbols in life that represent wisdom. You know, we lived in Arizona, we had a tree out in our back room, and every once in a while these 3 owls would come and live on that tree, huge owls, and they would just sit there for hours at a time. And owls are the symbol of wisdom because they have no fear of darkness. They see in the dark. They have that inner guidance system. And so that's why they're chosen as the symbol for wisdom. They're the symbol of intuitive knowing, of knowing beyond simple intellectual facts. The owl sees what no one else sees, hears what no one else hears. Even those things hiding in the shadows, they do not fear the darkness. They have that Christ faculty of wisdom, and that wisdom ultimately leads us back to our union with the divine, back to that awakened knowledge. So if you're comfortable, would you affirm with me? I'll say it first. I call forth the Christ faculty of wisdom in me. Together, I call forth the Christ faculty of wisdom in me. I am guided safely through life moment by moment. Together, I am guided safely through life moment by moment. And now we're guided safely through our offertory song, Blessing to the World.